Hey there. I retired early at the age of 55 last December, and since it's now been about 9 months since I retired, I wanted to share 5 things I've learned about early retirement I didn't know going into it, but have learned by living it. Early retirement isn't totally what I expected. Some parts are better, some are harder, and a few things completely surprised me. So I'm sharing these 5 things so those of you watching that haven't retired early but plan to can have a great heads up as you're probably going to experience these as well. The first lesson I learned right off the bat is that no one is attached to your job as much as you are. When I was getting ready to retire, I was worried about the additional workload for my colleagues or how much harder my leaving might make it for them, as they were used to me leading a very big project. And not only that, I also mentored several of my coworkers as well. I worried about how much harder my leaving might make their jobs, and part of me felt like I'd be letting many of them down. I thought many of my coworkers would be like, congrats on your retirement, but what are we going to do without you? And granted, there was a little bit of that, or maybe they were just being nice, but the reality is nobody is indispensable. Life moved on, my role was filled, and the team I worked with kept moving forward without me. And at first, I would talk to some of my colleagues now and then, but now that it's been about 9 months, that has become much less. And you know what? I'm really okay with that. I find that now I don't really care what is happening at work anymore, as that is no longer part of my life. So it's actually been very freeing, and retirement totally taught me that your job is just a chapter in your life, not your whole story. Speaking of leaving my job, that leads me into the second lesson I've learned, which is giving up a paycheck really does take an adjustment. Now, I would never have retired early if I wasn't confident in my financial readiness to do so. But I've learned that no longer getting a paycheck really takes some getting used to. I started earning a paycheck ever since I was 16, my first job working at a Hardee's fast food restaurant. Remember those? Having that automatic deposit stop for the first time was a shock, even though I had a solid plan in place. I still remember checking my account mid month and thinking, wait, nothing's coming in. This feels really strange. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but after a few months, once I saw that our spending plan worked and the withdrawals lined up with what I'd projected, I settled in. The security came from knowing the math worked in real life, not just on paper. It does take a little time, but eventually you stop missing that paycheck and start trusting your plan. But it definitely takes some getting used to. Which leads me into lesson 3, which is shifting from saving to spending is a lot harder than I thought. When you walk away from your job and are no longer getting that regular paycheck, something surprising happens. Even though I planned carefully and set money aside for retirement, I found myself pulling back on spending. I noticed this right away. Vacations I had budgeted for, projects around the house I'd planned for and budgeted, things I had deliberately planned to enjoy, I found myself hesitating. It wasn't about affordability, it was about mindset. For decades, I had been a saver, building for the future, and then suddenly the job now was to spend down what I had saved. And that just felt unnatural. And man, it was way harder than I expected. Over time, I've learned to remind myself this is exactly what the money is for. Retirement isn't just about having financial security, it's about giving yourself permission to actually enjoy it. But honestly, I still struggle with this even when I tell myself all of this. But I am getting better. Now, I also want to talk about a huge positive in retirement that is much better than I thought it would be, which brings us to lesson 4. Owning your time is much better than you think. I thought I understood how freeing it would be to control my own schedule, but actually living it is on a different level. For me, it showed up in the small things at first. Sleeping for as long as I want and not setting an alarm clock is amazing. Having slow mornings with coffee and taking a weekday to work on a project without feeling rushed at all. Even mundane things like being able to go grocery shopping on a weekday when it's much less busy is such a pleasure versus having to go on the weekends. Then it grew into bigger things like being able to travel on my own terms. Like I can fly to go see my parents and family whenever I want without having to schedule around my job. And I can fly midweek or any time of the year where I can get the best airfare. That sense of control over your days isn't just enjoyable, it makes life feel fuller, less hurried, and a lot more meaningful. And this leads me into the final lesson, or lesson 5, to share with you, which is becoming healthier in retirement isn't as easy as I thought. With my ability to own my day and having a lot more time, I thought, well, I'll have much more time to focus on my health. And indeed, this was one of the biggest reasons I chose to retire early. The stress of my last job and for years prior was causing me to have insomnia. I would overeat as a way to deal with the stress. And because of that busyness and being tired from the insomnia, I didn't make time for exercise. So I thought, well, when I do retire early, won't it be great? I'll finally have the time to focus on my health more, and I won't have all the stress and busyness that was really impacting my ability to take care of myself. And that's true. I do have much more time to take better care of myself now that I've retired. But what I've learned is it's very hard to break out of your old habits. Yes, my stress level has gone from 100 to 0, and I'm definitely sleeping much better. But the reality is, if I'm honest with myself, is I haven't been exercising as much as I had planned to, or getting my eating habits in order so I'm not overeating or snacking a lot of junk food. Turns out those habits are a lot harder to break than I thought. So, right now, I'm pretty disappointed in myself that after about 9 months of retirement, I'm not anywhere near where I thought I would be. I think although the insomnia and stress went away, just with the identity shift and the weirdness of being retired and not going to work, and the fact that my job as a healthcare IT analyst for years really defined me, it was a lot bigger adjustment than I expected and is reflected in catching myself still overeating as a coping mechanism, maybe, and then not feeling so great because of that, and then not exercising as much as I'd like. I will say though that being an early retiree, it has made it crystal clear to me, and I'll repeat, crystal clear, that my health really is my most valuable asset, really just as important as my investments. Not only so I can enjoy my retirement, but also because healthcare is so expensive. So the best way to really cut those expenses is just to take the best care of myself that I can and be my own health insurance. But I really do need to do much better at this. So, those are the 5 lessons I've learned so far in early retirement that I was really not expecting until I lived it. If you're already retired, I'd love to hear your reflections. What surprised you, and what lessons did you learn in retirement? What do you wish you'd known sooner by watching a video like this if you were able to? Drop a comment below, or if you haven't retired yet, did what I share surprise you? Thanks for watching. And when you're on the go, Early Retirement Roadmap is also available as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to download my free checklist, 12 Must Do Steps to Retire Sooner and Smarter. And go to MikeUpland.com for all of my media, including my blog. Until next time, this is Mike Upland, early retiree last year at age 55. Take care and make the most of today.